Hello again, I'm Jay Hicks with Gerald Properties, and we're back in downtown Fredericksburg reviving Goolrick's. But today we're going to step away from the building at Goolrick's and explore some memories, some history that's related to downtown Fredericksburg, visit with some of our friends and neighbors, and take a trip back in time. All right, we've made our way back to the vicinity of Goolrick's in our pursuit of a little history of the building, the business, and downtown. And we've landed next door at Ullman's Jewelry with Jerry Ullman. Jerry, thank you for joining us today. And I guess this is a good time to apologize to a little bit of the disruption we've got going on next door.
There's been a little noise, a little dust, but we've tolerated.
Right on. Well, thank you for that. And but I was hoping that today maybe you could share a little bit of your experience. Your family's been down here since 1928, operating this business, and I know you haven't been around that long.
Thank you.
But I think we could get a little bit from your experiences down here. So, what could you tell us?
Goolrick in particular, I remember being downtown when I was with my father. Goolrick was one of the big hangout spots, and it was open 7 days a week. Everybody knew everybody who worked there. They'd worked there for years, and knew personally, of course, the owner and the pharmacists and all the girls who worked there. It was a family of Springers, the last name Springer, who the family lived on Sophia Street, not far from here. And there were 10 or 11 children, I think, in that family. And I think probably almost every one of them worked at Goolrick's at one time or another. We all wish we could turn the clock back a little bit and have those more relaxed days when everybody knew everybody. And that's another feature about Fredericksburg 60 years ago, is that it was not nearly as transient as it is now, and everybody knew everybody, and it was just a nice, comfortable place to raise children. And
do you have any memories of the building or anything to do with any events down here? I think you came along after the last flood.
Yeah, the last flood was 1942, and if you take a look around, we can see there are watermarks on the wall where the flood was in 1942.
About knee high.
It's about knee high.
Yeah.
For a tall person.
So to my knees.
Yeah. So there was about 3 feet of water in here, and those watermarks, the stains on the walls remain now. And that was 1942. We had another smaller flood in 1972. There was a fire that Goolrick shared with us, or we shared with Goolrick, that kind of damaged a lot of damage in the basements that was pieced back together, and Goolrick now has undone all of that damage and is doing a nice job of putting the Goolrick building back in first-class shape. The jewelry store, this store, still has the burned floor joists that Goolrick at one time had and now doesn't have anymore. But the building somehow managed to survive 60 years. I'm sorry, not 60, 90 years of burned floor joists, and I don't know why it hasn't collapsed, but it's still here.
You know, we can testify that those timbers are still strong, even though they're a little scorched on the outside.
A little bit.
No. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jerry.
Thank you.
We hope that we deliver that first-class building next to you, like you just said.
We are anticipating.
Right on.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jay.
Well, we've done a lot of work to try and put together the history of Goolrick's as we put the building back together. And over the course of those searches, I've had the occasion to talk to Bill Beck, and we're here today with Bill and Beck's Antiques. Bill himself is a former mayor of the city of Fredericksburg. His family has a long history here in downtown Fredericksburg, and I think he was willing to share a story with us today about Goolrick's.
Glad to. Yeah, my own story about Goolrick's is just going in there to the lunch counter and then going for prescriptions, which I do more and more at my age. We miss them as a drugstore. But actually, the family story that I've always really loved is my mother's story. During the 1942 flood, and Mother would have been 20, and actually Daddy would have been 19 at that time, but he was a Boy Scout and one of Fredericksburg's first Eagle Scouts, actually. And Mother tells about standing up on the hill across the street there, looking down and seeing Daddy and a couple other Boy Scouts, I think, in a John boat getting people out of the apartments in the back end of Goolrick's there. And she says that's when she decided to marry him, which, of course, I think was a good decision. Or it worked out well for me anyway, but yeah. So we were glad. But that, I think, is the coolest family story about Goolricks we have.
Very good. Well, it's really great to visit with you here in your store, and really appreciate you sharing your piece of Goolrick's history with us.
It's a great place. Has a lot of history. It really does.
Well, one of the coolest things about Goolrick's has been that when you take that flake of wallpaper down, you remove that wood, you flip the page on something that you're reading, we learn something new, something important that happened related to Fredericksburg, and certainly that happened here in downtown Fredericksburg. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We really look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please follow us on all our socials to stay up to date with the latest happenings.